Hi everyone, welcome to AWS live training. So today we'll be talking about database services in AWS. There are different type of databases available and we'll be showing these services practically on my trial account. Before we start, right, in case you are having any doubt from the previous class where we talked about Lambda function and EC2 instances. So in case you're having any doubt, you can ask me. Otherwise, we are good to start with today's class. Okay, seems like there is no doubt. So in that case, I think we can get started. Okay, let me start by logging into my account and just give me a moment. I need to enter the password and I need to enter my code from the app, Google Authenticator app, 789815. Okay, so I'm logged in into my AWS account and without wasting more time, let's quickly start. So I will be starting with AWS Glue. So AWS Glue is one of the service in AWS. And what is the purpose of using this server? So using this service and where exactly it fits into our project that I will be explaining. So suppose you have some text file that can be in comma separated values, Excel format or tab separated values, right? You can directly use those files to create the table. If I talk about any database service, usually we create the table first. We define the table name, column name, and then we load the data accordingly. But this one, Glue, it works on a opposite concept. That means you already have some data available with you, and as per that data, it will be creating the table. You don't even have to specify the column name or their data type because it will go through your text file. It will scan your text file and it will find out like what should be the column and what should be their corresponding data type. So on the left side, you can see that there is a data catalog service. You can click on database and you can see that there is no database available as of now, zero. And if you click on tables, tables are also zero because there is nothing as of now. So we'll start from scratch. We'll start from very beginning. So in order to create the table, there's a service which is known as crawler and you can see here. So as the name indicates, crawler means it will crawl through your file. Any insect is crawling through the different objects, right? Similarly, the crawler will crawl through your files, that can be single file or multiple files, and it will automatically detect like how many columns should be there, what should be the column name in case you have header also, and what should be their data type. So it will make your developers life very easy. So what we will do is we will create our first crawler, and before that, let me open the S3 bucket because in order to crawl, it needs some data. So I will make sure that we have some data available. If you remember that day, we copied some file into S3 bucket, right? So let me quickly check that. My first bucket 3987, and inside it there is a file sample emp data.csv, right? This is a good file. This has few records about employee like employee id, employee name, department name, and age and gender. Few details are there, right? So we will create a crawler that will crawl through this file and it will automatically create the table for us. So I will go back to crawler and click on create crawler. You can give any name. I would say my first crawler. Okay. Tags are optional, so we'll go to next. Is your data already mapped to glue tables? No. Data sources. So we have to add the data source. We will add the data source as S3 because our data is available inside S3. There are many more data source available. You can see that. You can read the data from JDBC. You can read the data from DynamoDB, or there can be many more options. To keep it simple, our data is currently available inside S3 and we'll be reading from there. So your S3 is in this account or in a different account. For learning purpose, we have our own AWS account and our data is available in this account only. But it gives you the flexibility that you can even read the data from another AWS account. Although you need to provide the proper permissions, but even cross account S3 access is possible. As of now, we'll be going with this one. So we'll click on browse and I will select this one and this file and choose. That's all. Okay. So what I did is I have specified the complete path that includes the bucket name and my file name. And after that, crawl all subfolders. As of now, I have only one file, but you may have multiple folders also. And in case you want to scan all subfolder, you can keep this option open. Okay. And now click on add S3 source. That's good. We'll click on next. Choose an IAM role. So I think we don't have any IAM role. So we'll click on create new IAM role and provide something name. So AWS Glue service role, I would say test Neeraj. I'm just giving some name. So this service, right, crawler service, it will automatically create the role for you. And after that, click on next. Choose target database. When it will scan your file, where it should create the database. So as of now, there is no database. So I think we can click on add database and we can put some name. So I would say test DB. Okay, and create database. That's all. Now going back here, let me refresh the list, and once this reflect, I can select test DB. Okay, so DB we created manually, but table you don't need to create manually. Crawler will automatically scan your data from S3 and it will automatically find out the column name, their data type, everything. Okay, and that's all. Crawler schedule. If you know that data is coming twice a day, like morning, evening, you can schedule your crawler. If you remember, just like we scheduled the lambda in our last class, similarly, you can even schedule the crawler. But for learning purpose, you don't need to schedule it because that would unnecessarily cost you something, right? So better to run on demand. That means as and when you need it, whenever you want to run the crawler, you can come to this section and you can run it manually. So we'll go with on demand option. Otherwise, you have option to run hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or custom. You have the full flexibility to define a schedule for your crawler run. Okay, so all the details I have provided. I provided the crawler name, my first crawler. I provided the source. I provided IAM role name. I specified the database name, and I specified that we will run the crawler on demand as and when required. Okay, so we are good. We'll click on create crawler. So once our crawler will be ready, we should run our crawler. I think it is ready now. You can see that crawler successfully created and we have the option to run crawler. So let's run it. So when we will run it, right, what it will do behind the scene, it will scan your file from S3 and by scanning the file it will find out the number of columns and everything, and it will create the table for you. So earlier when we were checking in this database and table selection, there was no tables available, but let it complete and then I will show you. You can see that it's running. Okay, once it's finished, then only I will show you the tables created. Okay, you can see that this is the start time, this is the end time. It almost took like few seconds only, 39 seconds it took to scan your data. And the good thing is you can see here table changes. It will tell you after scanning is there any result or not. So after scanning there is one table change. One table change means it has created one table. Let's check it out. We'll go to databases and test db is there. Let's click on test db, and under this there should be one table, and you can see here sample employee data underscore csv. So whatever is your file name, right, it has taken as a table name. Database is test db, location is this data, type is csv, and if you want to run this, that's the important thing, right? Table has been created, that is okay, but how do I run the query on this table? So you can see here few details are displayed, and you can see that schema is like table definition. So we never told crawler that we have employee ID, name, age, gender, department ID, and manager employee ID. But it is smart enough that by scanning the data, it has figured out that there are 6 columns in your data. Not only columns. If you want to run the query, I'm not sure how many people are from like student and how many people are working. But even if you're a student, I hope you have little bit idea about tables, rows, and columns also, right? You can do select star from table, that will display every row, every column from your table. Or you can display specific columns. Suppose out of these column you just want to display employee ID and name, that's all. So let's do all this thing. So there are two things. Crawler is responsible for scanning your data and creating the table, that's all. It won't help you to execute the query. For execution of query we have another service with the name Athena. So I will talk about Athena. So before that, let me do a quick poll and we'll check it out if everyone is clear on the crawler or not. So I just started one small poll on the YouTube chat, and depending upon your response, we'll come to know. So out of 4 people, only one has voted till now. I would request to vote everyone so that we have the more clarity about the concept is clear to you or not. Okay, so you guys can vote. In the meantime, I'm coming back to my AWS account and I will search for Athena service. Athena, okay. So Athena is the service which will help you to execute the query. So you can see that launch query editor, click on that, and whatever database and tables we are talking about, right, those are available here. So you can see here database is test db, and under test db you can see table is one sample emp data underscore csv, which we just created 1 minute back, right? So if you want to expand this, you can expand it, and it will display the column names along with their data type. So you can see that employee id is string, name is string, age is big int. We never told what should be the column name and what should be the data type. Based upon the data in your CSV file, it has figured out the column name and their data type also. because the values in A's are all numeric value. That's why it has declared the data type for A's is integer. But for other columns, you can see that it is string. So let's execute some query. I would say select star from test db dot sample emp data.csv. Okay, that's all. And we'll execute this query. Why it's not running? Okay, you see this one. Before you run your first query, you need to set up a query result location in Amazon S3. Okay, we'll do that. So click on edit setting and specify some bucket. Suppose I will take this bucket, and I think we have to create some folder. Okay, we'll create folder, no worries. So I will create folder and I will say Athena query output. Okay, so basically Athena needs one folder in S3 where it can store its queries output, and that's a mandatory step. Without that, you cannot run any query. So I'm coming back here and let me refresh. So one folder is appearing, Athena query OP. I will select this and choose. Okay, so I have specified one directory from my S3 bucket, which will be used internally by Athena to store the output. And we are good now. We are coming to editor, and yes, now the run button is enabled. So we'll run this. Okay, we'll run this and it will display the output below. It is saying no result. Why? Select star from test db dot. Why it's not running? Mhm. I didn't understand why it is not running. It has very okay. Let me try from here. Preview table. Still there is no data. Why? There should be size is 347 bytes. We have some data. We have 6 7 rows. Why this is not displaying the output? Maybe what I feel is the file should be inside a directory, and then we should execute the crawler on directory so that there can be multiple files in the same directory. But let's check it out. We'll figure out. Hold on. There is no result. Data scanned, nothing. Otherwise, it should display like how much of data is being scanned. Mm, okay, we'll do something. Just hold on. So we'll create one folder. I would say employee. Not control X. I will create a folder with the name employee, and we'll move that file into this one. Okay, we'll move this file. So action move, and into which bucket? Into the same bucket only, employee here, and choose destination and move. Okay, so our data is moved inside a folder. We'll check it out, employee, and inside that, yes, right. Now let's do one thing. Let's run our crawler again. Crawler will modify first. I will select my crawler. I will edit. So source part we will edit because earlier it pointing to one file directly will point to a directory. Yeah. So we will point to employee folder, employee and update, next, 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 and update. Okay. What I did is I moved my CSV file into a directory, and in the crawler I have provided the directory path, and now I will run the crawler and let's see. So you can see that it's in running state. It will take few seconds. Table changes nothing. Why? Something is wrong. Let me see if I can delete the table. We'll start from scratch. Delete. Okay. And we'll go to crawler again and we'll run the crawler again. Run. It seems like something is wrong because instead of running, it is stopping. Okay, please wait. We'll look into this. My crawler is ready now, so I will select this and run. This one is also completed, but I don't see any table generated. Database. Okay, something is wrong. I don't know what is there. We'll check. Crawler. Either we can create one more crawler because I think this is not. Why it's running again? I don't know. Okay, let it run. We'll create one more crawler. We'll add a source. So we'll browse this bucket and this folder. Choose this one. Next. Role is already there, so we'll use this role. Next. Choose a database, so we'll use test db. Next and create. Now we will run this crawler. I am just doubting on the role, because if the role does not have access to the bucket, when it's creating the role by itself, right, it should, I think it should take care automatically. We'll check it out if it will not work. Because if it does not have access to S3, then it will not be able to scan the data. No, something is wrong. It's not creating, it's saying table changes. Don't know what's happening. There is no table. Okay, so I will look into this later. Let's not waste our time. I will basically, the table should be available here and you should be able to execute the query. So in my previous batch, it was running fine. Maybe something is missing. I will check it offline. Let's not waste everyone's time. So we'll be moving to the next service, that is Redshift. Okay. So Redshift is not free of cost available. So I will just explain like what Redshift is all about. So Redshift is also a database. You may be thinking, what is the difference between Redshift and Athena? So Athena, the data is stored in S3, right? And table definition is available in, you can say, glue, and Athena will execute the query. So basically, when you execute the query, behind the scene, it is scanning your data. That means data is not actually available in the table, or data is not actually available in a database. Rather, data is still stored inside S3 only, and that will be executed, that will be scanned and processed only when you will run the query. On the other side, Redshift is a complete database. That means you can create the table first and then you can load the data. And it's not only about loading the data. You can create the data, you can update the existing data, you can even delete the records from the table. On the other side, Athena, which is directly working on S3 data, and as you are aware that S3 data cannot be modified. That means you can't remove a single line from S3 file. That's not possible. You cannot add a new line into S3 file, or you cannot even update an existing file in S3. You can't do that. Whatever you can do is only on the file level. That means you can copy the file or you can delete the entire file, but you cannot modify the content of the file. On the other side, Amazon Redshift, it's a complete database. That means it allows you to create a table, and after creating the table, you can insert individual rows. And once inserted, if you want to delete the existing row or if you want to update the existing row, you can do that also. So Redshift supports all operations, that is create, read, update and delete. On the other side, Athena is only for reading. It will directly analyze your data from S3 location. It does not even store the data inside the table. That's the major difference between Athena and Redshift. Okay. So earlier till last year, Redshift was also provided as a free service, as a free tier. So you can try your hand
Amazon Redshift
on.
Serverless makes it
But
easy to
as of
run
now,
and scale
they
analytics
are
in
not
seconds
providing it as
without the
free of
need to
cost.
set up and
But
manage
they have a
data
newer
warehouse
version available.
infrastructure.
The newer version is Redshift serverless free trial, because they are promoting the Redshift serverless version. That's why the normal Redshift they are not allowing to try it out, because they want people to try the serverless version. But this is something new. Companies has not started using it as of now. They are providing it free of cost so that companies can try it out, and if they find it interesting, if they find it useful, then you can migrate your project from normal Redshift to serverless Redshift. Okay, so I can show you quickly, although I will not create it because it's not free of cost. So I will click on cluster and there is no cluster, you can click on create cluster. You can provide something. I would say my first Redshift server. Okay. Size of the cluster I will choose. So you can click from the drop down and you can see that there is no free tier version available. Everything is chargeable. Okay. You can see the rate also. 0.315 per node per hour, 6.10 per node per hour, 14.8 per node per hour, right? So we'll definitely not go with this one. Earlier, if I talk about last year, they were providing a free tier option as well. But ultimately, once you will create, right, you have to provide the username, the admin username, and either you provide your password or you generate auto password, and then you can click on create cluster. So basically it will create your Redshift cluster. Once your cluster is ready, you can create your database, your tables, and you can play with your tables when, I mean, any type of operation you can do. Okay, I hope you got some idea about Redshift. In case you are having any doubts on Redshift part, you can ask me. Okay, in the meantime, I will check why this one is 747 bytes. That means it has some data. Employee. Oh, what happened? Why it was not able to create the table? Okay, so we talked about first we talked about crawler, when we talked about Athena, now we talked about Redshift, and now we will be moving to the next topic, that is another type of database. We talked about a database service which can execute the query, only execute the query. It cannot edit, it cannot modify, it cannot delete. After that, we talked about Redshift, where you can perform all the operation. And now I will be talking about a third type of database, which is known as NoSQL. If you have heard about NoSQL, so there are two type of database, SQL and NoSQL. So Microsoft SQL Server, IBM DB2, Oracle, MySQL, these are type of SQL database. But nowadays, NoSQL database are also in trend. And why they call it as NoSQL? Because this is first of all not opposite of SQL. Don't think that NoSQL is opposite of SQL. NoSQL stands for not only SQL. N stand for not and O stand for only. So NoSQL is not only SQL but something additional. That means whatever your SQL database can do, NoSQL can do much more of that. I mean, it can do something additional. So in simple words, let's not complicate it. I will try to explain in simple words. SQL databases can deal with only structured data. Structured data means you have a predefined structure that every row in your file should have employee ID, first name, last name, department ID, salary, something like that. Comma separated or colon separated, semicolon separated, pipe separated, dollar separated, something, right? That means even before creation of your table, you are aware about the structure of your data. That's why this is known as structured data. But sometimes you may have to deal with unstructured data where every row does not follow a fixed pattern. That means first row may have 5 details, second row may have 10 details, third row may have only 2 details. You may be thinking like what type of data it is. Yes, this type of data is known as unstructured data. And in order to deal with unstructured data, we have NoSQL DB available with AWS and the name is DynamoDB. DynamoDB. And you can read this line, managed NoSQL database. Managed means it is completely managed by the cloud, managed by the AWS. That means where the server is running, what is the capacity, how to deal with it, that is not your concern. You can just create your table and execute your query and that's all. Nothing more than that. Okay. So what I will do is I will open it We'll try to create one table and then you will understand more about it. So as of now, there is no table available. You can click on create table. Okay. And provide the table name. I would say employee. That would be our simple example. So I would say employee. Partition key. So every row should have a partition key. Partition key is nothing but your unique key, just like employee ID. So every employee has a unique employee ID. More than one employee cannot share the same employee ID. They can have same manager, they can have same name, they can have same gender, they can even have same department, but they should not have the same employee ID. So I would say employee ID is my partition column. Just hold on, my bad. X. Partition key is my employee ID. Okay. After that, there is sort key that is optional. Sort key will help you when you are executing a query. So it will run your query in a faster manner if you will provide a sort key. So I can give department ID. Okay. What will happen is, suppose out of thousands of employee, if you want to get the detail about a specific department, so you can provide the department ID. Then your scanning will be limited because it knows that there are 10 departments, so it will scan only particular department data. That means if you want to get the detail about a particular employee and along with employee ID, optionally you are providing a department ID, that will make your scanning faster, right? Suppose you are going into a building and you are not aware that particular office is on which floor, so you have to scan each and every floor. But if your friend tell you that the particular office is on third floor, that means your searching is limited now. You don't have to waste your time on ground, first and second floor. You directly go to third floor and start searching for that particular shop or particular office. Same thing is here. Okay. So I specify table name, partition key, sort key, and now I will click on create table. Okay, it will take some time to create the table. Within few seconds it should be ready, and then I will show you how to insert the data. So it's not like Athena, it's not like that data is already available and we are executing the query on top of that. It's not like that. We will create the table, we will insert the data, and the good part is your different rows can have different number of detail. Although that looks very strange, right? But I will show you. Once I will show you, you will understand that. So data is ready. Table is ready. And let's add some data here. So what you can do is you can click on action and create item. So we usually call it as item. So what you can do is you can specify employee ID. I would say EMP001. Department ID, I would say IT. And along with these two are mandatory now. Employee ID and department ID you have to provide. On top of that, you want to provide more detail. You can click add new attribute. And attribute is suppose of type string. Okay. And attribute name, suppose I would say first name. Okay. I am giving F name. Value is Neeraj. I will add one more attribute. String. Last name. L underscore name. Kumar. Okay. So employee ID, department, first name, last name, and click on create item. If you want to scan your table, that means you want to execute the query, right? Click on scan and then run, and it will display what is there inside your table. You can see here employee ID EMP001, department ID IT. Okay, it was department ID. I provided the name. That's fine. We can edit if you want. You can, instead of IT, department ID. So I would say D1. Okay. So you can see this one, employee ID 001 D1 Neeraj Kumar. Now suppose you want to add more item. So what you will do is you will go back and we'll click on action. Okay, here, come back here. So action and create item. Okay, this time employee ID is EMP00002. Department ID is D2. We'll add more attributes. So the number of attributes, right? It's not mandatory to be same. That makes it easy to deal with unstructured data. So for employee 001, I added first name and last name. For this employee, I will add only first name. Okay, first name. Suppose Murthy. Okay, after that, I will add age number. So I will add age 28, and I will add more attributes. I would say boolean. Boolean is permanent. Is this employee permanent? True. I can add more attributes. I would say string. Suppose manager employee ID. Okay, manager employee ID or maybe manager name, and here I will give Srinath. Okay, so you noticed one thing, that in the previous row I added first name and last name. Here I added first name, is permanent, and manager name. It will not stop you because there is no hard and fast rule for your columns, and that makes DynamoDB capable of dealing with unstructured data. Okay, now you can see the data. So employee 002, department ID is D2, age is 28, first name Murthy, is permanent, true. Last name is not. There is no last name because last name you added for employee 001, but for employee 002 there is no last name, and manager name is Srinath. But if you look at the employee 001, we have department detail, we have first name, and we have last name. That's all. So the point is that you have the flexibility that different rows can have different type of details. It's not mandatory to be similar. That's why it is known as unstructured data. It will help you to insert unstructured data as well as when you will run the query, because in structured data, right, suppose you are creating a SQL table in Oracle and it is expecting 5 details: first name, last name, gender, salary, manager name. Out of 5, if you are not inserting one, it will not accept, right? But here that is not the case. In one row you can have 100 values, in second row you can have only 2 values, it will not complain. That's why you can easily deal with unstructured data. Okay, so I think with this one we are done with DynamoDB. In case you are having any doubt, you can ask me. In order to avoid any additional cost, I will delete this table. So what I will do is I will expand this, click on tables, select this, and delete. Okay, type confirm. Okay, similarly whatever crawler we created, let's delete them also to avoid any additional thing. Action and then delete. Type delete. Okay. Okay, so friends, with this one we are done with today's class. So I planned for few topics which we have covered. In case you are having any doubt till now, you can ask me. Otherwise, we are done. I will conduct a small poll. So I'm conducting a small poll in the YouTube chat just to get the feedback. In case you are having any doubt, you can like type in the chat window and I will answer that. Okay, friends. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we'll talk about few more AWS services, and I will create the link and we'll share in the WhatsApp group. So thanks for joining. Thank you.